My name is Phil Bremen. I'm an associate professor in telecommunications. That's my job here at Ball State. Most of my life I've not been in higher education, never thought I was going to be in higher education. Seemed like a nice thing, but I wasn't prepared for it, didn't have all the right degrees. I worked in newspapers and radio, and then I got into TV. As soon as I got a driver's license, I got into TV. And I had to wait till I was 16. I was a local anchor and reporter in various places, was a network correspondent with NBC News in the US, the Caribbean, Latin America, Europe, the Middle East. Lived in Europe for 6 years. That's Birmingham, England. And then I had a chance to try something else, and for 4 years I was press secretary to the governor of Indiana, a guy named Frank O'Bannon. I mention this to you because I bring some perspectives that you may find useful, or at least you will know where I'm coming from. So today I want to talk about this, and because I used to be in radio, and because there was a time when radio was a little more rambunctious than it is today, would you mind if I gave you this intro the way it might have been heard, say, in the 1960s or early 70s? How about this? When news breaks out, let's break in. Okay, we don't do that anymore. It's just a good thing because nobody believes that, right? This was shot here in the Unified Media Lab on the occasion of the first ribbon cutting when Joanne Gora was still president. This is in the village. This is the village pantry. Imagine, if you will, a picture that has only one police car, not a bunch of them. The crime scene tape is not up yet. There is not a huge crowd here. You are in a car. You're a Ball State student majoring in news. And as you go by this gas station on a nice February afternoon, Friday afternoon, by the way, while you're doing that, all of a sudden, this is the package that a student of mine enterprised. I say enterprised because she took it upon herself to jump on the story. All right, so that's the scene. All of these are screen grabs from her video, by the way. Randa Gore was the student in the spring of 2012. This was another screen grab, nice shot. The background of the story, she discovered because she was with a guy who had a cell phone camera. By the way, if you are ever in that position, you have a tool in your hands, right? Or in your pocket or your purse, but please turn it horizontally. That's the way your screen works. It just works better that way. You can get great video on a cell phone. I once asked a very respected photojournalist who came to Ball State to speak. In fact, a lot of people ask him this. What's the best camera to use? What was his answer? The one you have in your hand is the best one. If this is what you've got, use it. It'll be fine. What you could also do, and in this case what she did, because that wasn't her camera, she scrambled back, it wasn't very far, to the Ball Communications building. She got some gear. She went back to the scene. Nice thing about crime scenes is they tend to last a while, and particularly when somebody gets killed and police officers get shot, and that was the case. What was the deal here? Muncie police officers, a couple of them in an unmarked SUV, that one right there, boxed in a robbery suspect, wanted on a warrant, and he started shooting. And they, of course, shot back. Those two police officers were wounded, and the gunman was killed. You can see all the bullet holes in the windshield of his car, side windows shot out. Now you understand where all those bullets you heard flying, where they went. That was the story. It's a big story, right? That doesn't happen every day. These were the first Muncie police officers to have been to have been shot in the line of duty. They were both okay ultimately, although one was shot in the face, in something like 9 years. It doesn't happen very often in a city this size. In fact, police don't shoot at people very often in a city this size. That's news. Somebody got killed, also big news. So there's Randa. She did the story. What did she do? What would you do? You got your gear. Let's say for whatever reason you decided there's nobody to call back at the office, although calling back to the office would be a good thing, right? If there were somebody there on a Friday afternoon, probably not. Rather than limp along on a cell phone, she wisely got some high-grade gear, the best we've got, camera, external mic and all that. She went back. Now what? What do you do next? You go back. Exactly, right. The benefit for you is you know it's there. You saw it. A lot of times when you hear something on a police scanner, and by the way, if you're not accustomed to listening to the scanner over at the desk, get accustomed to it. It's something you're going to need to do in newsrooms. And you need to be able to listen to it while you are doing other stuff, and you need to be able to recognize the stuff which you should pay attention to, as opposed to the stuff you can ignore. And sometimes the police are a little sneaky, and they will speak in, I don't mean formal code, but in cryptic language to say to those in the know, their fellow officers, that there's something going on here, and if you don't listen closely, you'll miss it. I remember one time I got in on the end of a kidnapping in Indianapolis. I had police scanners in my personal car, and I had a video camera in my car. And one night driving, I was anchoring the weekend news, and on my way back home, I heard on one of the scanners, which I always had on, I heard a couple of car numbers which I recognized as belonging to homicide detectives. And they were going to rendezvous with a district car, that's a marked car, district car patrols a district, at a certain location. A rendezvous is generally assigned when it's detectives and district cars that they are going to go hit somebody. They're going to go knock down a door. And I thought, well, it might be nice to be there. So I just joined them at the rendezvous. What are they going to do? Tell me to go away? They might have, but they knew me. So I tagged along with them. I got some great footage. Nobody else had it. If I hadn't recognized their car numbers, I wouldn't have had it, because there was nothing unusual about the call, except that I knew there was this kidnapping working. I just didn't know this was connected. You want to know what they can say affirmatively, what they know. Try to get from people what they actually know, not what they suspect or they've heard rumored. And in this case, somebody was upset that the university put out an alert to the campus after the fact, but somehow I didn't think that was enough. What do you want to know from the police? If the police will talk to you. And they didn't this time. Yeah, what happened? Sure. What do you need to know to tell this story? And remember, your deadline is now, right? It's not Monday when we've got a show. There's a website. And the deadline for the website is now. It's as soon as you can get a story over there. So, what do you need to know?
Who they were.
Yeah, who are the police officers? In fact, who are these people, right? Because if you had seen all the people who were shot, the one who was dead and the two wounded, they were all in civilian clothes. Who were these people? What happened? What was it all about? What else do you want to know? Specifically.
Where it happened.
Yeah, in this case we pretty much know where it happened, but what we may not know is what led up to this, right? Did some incidents begin one place and end someplace else? And if all you do is look at where you are now, you're missing a big part of the story. So that's right. What else?
Why it happened.
Yeah, why it happened. I mean, police officers are not supposed to shoot people unless they have to. So what made them have to shoot this guy? Well, he shot at them first, apparently. That's pretty compelling stuff. I think I'd shoot back too if I had a gun. What else do you want to know? Names, ages, hometowns.
What's going to happen next?
What's always a good thing to ask? What happens next? What might happen next? Well, the subject is, the gunman is dead. I'm going to call him the gunman, even though there were three people, at least three with guns, not counting the extra police officer in uniform. What happens to the officers? Well, they went to the hospital. What condition are they in? Okay, that's a good thing to know. Are they going to be on light duty or administrative duty? That often happens when police officers are involved in a shooting. It's a precaution, also gives them a chance to decompress, because people tell me that having shot someone is not a good thing. You can have moral qualms afterwards, because it's a decision made in an instant, and you want to make sure you make the right decision. Are there other suspects? And in fact, suspects in what? What was this guy wanted for? He came from Pennsylvania. Apparently he'd been living in Muncie only a little while. A chain of robberies, as it turns out. Oh, well, which ones? You want to tie him to a case, right, or more, because those robberies were news when they occurred. You don't know, of course, for sure that he did it. Let's talk about words for just a second here, because words matter. Every word you choose paints a picture. depending on the word you choose, you may be painting a different picture than the one you intended. The reason I bring this up now is because I hear the word suspect misused a lot. A suspect is a person suspected of having committed a crime. If I, at this very instant, and you followed me so you knew, I put on a hood and I walked down to the atrium and I held up the cashiers, you saw me do this, am I a suspect? No, I'm the perpetrator. I'm the robber. You may or may not want to name me, you may not know my name, but I'm not a suspect. If police have a description of somebody, they're looking for people who knew so-and-so, and then there's one particular person of interest. This is a phrase that's come up lately. It's a softer phrase than suspect. You need to be careful about how you use words. But once someone has been identified as the person who did a crime, he or she is convicted, he or she leaves a note, whatever it is, once we know for sure that was the person, it's not a suspect any longer. Be alert to things that don't look or sound normal. There's a lot of that when you stop and think about it. Take good notes. Don't rely on your memory. You're taking very extensive notes. I'm impressed. What do you plan to do with those?
Just put them on my computer, digitize them, so I got them.
Neat idea. Scientists have discovered that even if you never look at the notes again, having written them helps you remember. There's something about that tactile connection. But don't rely on memory. For one thing, memory can be clouded. It may be a while before you come back. Notes, notes, notes. They're very helpful. Get contact names and numbers. Why do you need those? To follow up. You suddenly discover you forgot to ask something, or you're not sure of something, or you need to clarify, whatever it is, or something may change, and the detective says, why don't you call me later? Because I'm not going to get... Anyway, they're notoriously hard to reach if you don't have a direct number. The police in this community are not terribly press friendly. They're not bad people. They just have not been accustomed to working a lot with the press, except for the folks at the Star Press whom they see all the time. Constantly ask yourself, what more do I need now, and what do I need later? And again, keep the desk informed. The desk may help you with that. The desk may say, well, have you checked on X, or do you know Y? Well, that's helpful. Always helpful to have a second brain on the job. By the way, those notes probably should include times. You may never use the times you write when X happened. But it's good to know when you notice something. Sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes it matters. Sometimes an ambulance is very slow to get to a scene and somebody dies, or a fire truck goes to the wrong address, costs X minutes, and as a result the house burns down. Times matter. Sometimes they're in official reports, but you may not have time to wait for the official report. If you can talk to an investigating officer, get times then too. I talked about both literally and figuratively stepping back. Take the wide view. What is the broader meaning? What more does my audience need to understand? What does your audience have to do with all this? The news is the news, isn't it? Does it matter whom you're telling it to? Yes, 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 we think it does. How does it matter? And what's your name? Brianna, okay. Why does it matter whom you're telling it to?
If you use, I don't know. So
Yes, you do.
point across so they can understand.
That's good, so they can understand. Is there another? Yeah, you want to be able to use language that your audience is going to understand. You use terms that the audience is going to understand. If you're talking to a room full of municipal financial officials, county auditors, city assessors, tax collectors, you can talk about TIFs and I'm forgetting all the, I can see the acronyms, don't know how to pronounce them. What's that?
Like JPEG?
Yeah, well, no, that's not the same kind of TIF. No, a TIF is a tax increment financing district, TIF. And it's something that you as college students probably never come across. But when you start covering municipal government, you're going to know that that matters, and when you own a house, it's going to matter. Because if all the property taxes from the village promenade, for instance, go to pay for a package of incentives that got those people to build that, and I don't think there were in this case. I think the only incentive was that the city paid for the garage, if I recall correctly, which is a pretty big incentive. But there's revenue generated by the garage. If you, as a citizen, know that all the income, well, let's take another example. Let's say you're in Indianapolis and all the tax dollars that would be collected from Lucas Oil Stadium, kind of an expensive building, all those go to pay for the stadium or go to pay for, let's say, subsidizing the Colts. What does that mean? One of the things it means is that all the police protection, all the municipal services like sewer and road maintenance, that those property tax dollars would otherwise have helped to pay for, you have to shoulder their share. Because all those property tax dollars are going to something specific. That's what TIF, not JPEG, is. If you are in an audience of people who deal with that for a living, they know that. You can use those terms. If you are reporting to the general public, you're going to need to find a way to explain it. You can't explain it if you don't understand it. This gets more complicated, doesn't it? It's a real incentive to follow the news. If you don't believe me now, wait till the first time you publish a story that reads ridiculously because everybody who has read it understands more about it than you did. And then talk to your editor and take the phone calls from the people who say, "What idiot is this? How could you write that?" I would like to spare you that experience. I've seen it happen, and it's not pleasant. And your boss doesn't like it either, because your boss is going to get some of those calls, and he's got better things to do than explain why he hired an idiot. Keep your producer or editor informed, because they need to keep making plans, right? And plans may shift. There are other news stories happening. They got to decide, what do they do with yours? How do they play it? What more do they deploy? What else may they cover? What do they have to crank back on coverage? Display on the front page, if they're planning that, or the rundown of the newscast. It's important to include other people in your thinking. Check back. Follow up. That's why we had those phone numbers, right? What's new? What's changed? Keep your editor and producer informed. Being prepared is very important, very helpful. And part of being prepared is keeping up with the news. Last thing I'm going to tell you is you can't recognize what's new unless you know what's old. And the only way you can do that is by keeping up. Questions?